It is going. We are live.
Okay.
All right. Well, I'm out of here.
I told him I thought he should stay for women's health class, but they don't want him.
Okay.
See ya. Okay. Super excited to see everybody tonight. I thought real quick, we didn't do a sign-in list today because instead of this just being like our usual patients, we kind of spread the word a little bit more. So we have other people here as well. So I thought we could just real quick introduce ourselves. Just say your first name and what brought you here tonight. Like either what you were hoping. You did make it. Sneak that in. Or sneak in the back, wherever you want to get. Anyways, just state like your name and why you came. Like either because you know somebody, because you want to learn XYZ, or whatever. So let's start right here.
I'm Judy, and I've heard the ads on radio spots. I know Neil Larson personally, and anyway, and I just have a lot that I'd like to learn and see why I'm packing on or holding on to. It's not really packing on. It's not getting any worse, but it's certainly not getting any better either.
Okay, perfect.
I'm Joyce, and I got the email inviting me to town, and I thought, well, that'd be interesting. I might learn something new, so I'm here.
Awesome.
I am Audra, and I am here to just learn more about women stuff because I have PCOS. I've been with the program for a couple months now, and PCOS sucks. And hopefully I can learn something that may help me to regulate things.
Awesome. What does that mean?
PCOS is polycystic ovary syndrome. It is something that irregulates your periods. It can also cause infertility. Most times it is caught because there are cysts on your ovaries. I do not have that, so I had no clue what was going on.
Okay, interesting side note. I just have to tell you guys, I read a study today. Not a study. It was a doctor citing how women's health is so like way less research than men's health. And so he literally had a picture and he was like, if men's testicles look like women's ovaries, we would already have this shit figured out. And just talked about all the money that would be dumped into research. But women, it's just like, you have ovaries all over, or you have cysts all over your ovaries, it's fine. You have uterine fibroids, it's fine. Like, but men, they would be like, figuring out. It's just interesting. And he had like cited numerous studies that where money gets dumped towards men, but not to women's health. And anyway, so I thought it was interesting. So, all right.
My name is Sheena, and I know Kim and love her and think she's so smart. So I saw her post on Instagram and wanted to come.
Sweet.
So I'm Lexi. I've been in the program since February, and I need to learn about this stuff and help my daughter as well.
Awesome.
My name is Kaisa, and my sister invited me and thought it would be interesting.
Sweet.
I'm Alina. I'm in my last week of reduction, and I didn't know half of this. I don't know anything about this kind of stuff, so I'm excited to learn something.
Sweet.
My name is Tara. My daughter-in-law invited me, and I've been very impressed with what she's gone through, so I thought I'd see if I could do something.
Glad you came.
Hi, I'm Michelle. Pretty much the same reason is this all has to be connected. So,
awesome.
Looking forward to learning about it.
I'm Cora, and I wanted to learn more about my body and what it does.
Sweet.
I'm Abigail. Same thing, but also I'm here for Ashley. So
I'm Lauren. I'm here to support Ashley.
I'm Kaylee, and same Ashley.
I'm Cambry. Same thing. Ashley's smart. I want to hear. Well, everyone else.
We're best friends.
I'm Jenna, and I'm here to support information.
Awesome.
Judy, and I know Kim and Ashley, and I just think they're well done.
Sweet. Thanks.
I'm Olivia. I got invited to this by my mom. Okay, I don't know what to expect, but I'm excited.
Sweet. Awesome. Okay, so when Brady asked us probably 2 months ago, least, he's like, we need to do a women's health class. You're in charge. And we were kind of like, okay. And since then, we'd always kind of been thinking about things that we wanted to talk about, but like, there's so much we could talk about that it then became hard to like, how are we going to put this into like our hour and a half classes that we have? So if you leave here tonight and you're like, have a lot of questions or like, I need more information on this, like we would love for you to tell us and we can have more classes. We can't go into like major depth on any of our topics tonight. We're kind of going to give you like the brief overview, the basics, some basic things you can leave here tonight knowing that I can go home and do to start changing things and taking control of your body. And so we just, so this is kind of like the basics, the overview. If you have questions, maybe save our questions to the end tonight. That way everybody can kind of get through their parts. So this is Ashley. She's one of our health coaches. I think most of you guys know me. I'm Kim. I'm a health coach. This is Amanda. She's a health coach. And then we have Amy over here. I don't know if you guys have met Amy. This is our nurse practitioner. So she is also going to have a part tonight more on like the hormone testing and all that kind of stuff. Plus she's actually like the actual expert and we just like read a lot of stuff. So that's where our knowledge comes from. And we'll share that information with you too. The three of us are not experts. We have no degrees in medicine or hormone therapy or anything like that. We're just well-read. So we just study a lot. We have a lot of personal experience. So most of what we're bringing tonight is what we've read and studied, coupled with our personal experience and how taking control instead of just letting whatever happens has changed our lives. So Ashley's going to start us off by just talking about the 4 phases of the menstrual cycle, because I think a lot of people, Ashley included, was like, why was I 20 years old before I even knew this happened? So there you go.
Yes. Okay. So I'm Ashley. I'm one of the health coaches. I'm a holistic nutritionist and soon to be hormone specialist. So we're getting there. Almost there. So yes, I'm going to give a brief overview of the menstrual cycle, the 4 phases, just because our menstrual cycle is so much more than just our period. It's so much more than just our lead week. Like Kim said, about 2 years ago, I realized that there was more to my cycle than just my period. And it's so empowering when you understand your cycle, you understand these 4 phases, helps you better understand yourself and trust yourself more. So with this like first graph diagram, I'm just going to break down the 4 cycles so we all understand what's happening throughout the month with us. Because unlike men, they're the same day to day. Like they wake up, they go to bed, and the next day they just start all over. But for us, it takes us a month to do that. And it all starts with day 1 with our menstrual cycle. This is kind of like how I like to show it. We all know what the menstrual phase kind of is. This is our period. This is when we're bleeding. This is when the uterus is shedding that lining. It usually lasts 5 to 7 days. Some women it's a little shorter, some it's a little longer, but this is like a good healthy range. If it's like 1 to 2 days, that's like a problem. And if it's like more than 9 days, we're starting to get a problem. So that's the first phase of your cycle. And once your period ends, you're going to start the follicular phase. This lasts about 7 to 10 days, and it goes until you ovulate. So your ovulatory phase, when you ovulate, it's when your body releases its egg, and that egg has 24 hours to get fertilized. Once those 24 hours are up, you can't get pregnant until you ovulate again your next cycle. So, fun fact. And once that egg is released, you go into your luteal phase. This is the longest phase of your cycle. It's the one that people usually dread the most because it leads up until your period. This is when your body doesn't know yet if that egg was fertilized. So it's building a nice home for it just in case. And then once it realizes that no baby is coming, it's going to shed the lining, and that's when this starts all over again. So that's like a very basic overview of what's happening, the different phases of your cycle. And I just want to dive in a little deeper into each phase. I could talk for like hours just about the menstrual cycle or just about the luteal. But like Kim said, I'm just going to give like a basic overview, and then we can go into it later some other time.
So with this diagram, I'm just going to talk about the hormones that are more present during certain phases. You have a lot more hormones going on than just these three, but these are like the main three that play a big part, and it affects how you feel during certain times of the month, your lifestyle, and understanding this can help you kind of tap in and lean into what your body's already like trying to do. So I'll start with the follicular phase. I like to think of this as like springtime. This is when estrogen is more prominent, estrogen is rising, and so you will literally feel that your energy is rising during the follicular phase. You will feel more energetic, you'll feel more joyful, creative, you'll feel really productive. This is like the time of month where you want to like get crap done. Like you're really like determined to get stuff done. Because of that, if you're someone who likes to work out, we definitely recommend working out. Moving your body is so important. During the follicular phase, it's super important to like go crush some hard workouts. Your body's feeling it. It's going to feel easier to lift heavier weights, to do more cardio, so longer runs, bike rides, hikes, and lots of strength training. That's where you're going to see like the most results, is if you do that during your follicular phase. So next is your ovulatory phase. This is like summertime, and just like summertime here, it doesn't last very long, but it feels so good. This is mostly defined by the hormone testosterone. As you see, you'll get a little spike in it during this phase, and it literally makes you feel so good. It makes you feel so confident, beautiful, sexy, very outgoing, and social. It's usually during this phase that you'll find yourself being like, wow, like my hair looks so good today, or my skin is glowing. That doesn't happen often, but sometimes we say that to ourselves. It's probably during the ovulatory phase because you feel more confident and you'll want to be more social during this time. You want to be like around people more. Just like the follicular phase, this is when you want to do harder workouts. You can also do more like quick cardio, so HIIT workouts, sprints, strength training, all of that is super good during your ovulatory phase. Most people see like PRs or like personal records and stuff in their like ovulatory phase, where that's like lifting, running, whatever sport that may be. You're going to see lots of good results during your ovulatory phase. Okay, next is luteal. I could talk about the luteal phase forever. I feel like I'm in my luteal phase right now, actually. And this is defined by the hormone progesterone. And this is super important. This is so critical that we like love and support this hormone during this phase, because if you're in your luteal phase and you have excess estrogen, that's when you're going to get PMS symptoms. So I'll say that one more time. If you have excess estrogen during your luteal phase, that's when you're going to get PMS symptoms. I don't know what it is for like y'all, but that could be like bloating, cramps, acne, moody, cravings, that sort of thing. That's going to happen if you have excess estrogen. If all your hormones are like balanced, you have all the nutrients and vitamins that you need, you shouldn't be having any PMS symptoms. That doesn't mean like not every once in a while you might have a little cramping or something, but for the most part, you shouldn't have PMS symptoms. And so it's super important to love and support this hormone during this phase. And you can do that by focusing on blood sugar stability. If I could like put that like in bold letters, I would. Blood sugar stability is like key during this, because if your blood sugar is like out of whack, then your body is going to release these emergency hormones like cortisol, and cortisol makes it really hard for the liver to do one of its jobs. And one of the liver's jobs is to get rid of this excess estrogen for us. So during your luteal phase, it's important to balance your blood sugar and support your liver. So this means when you're eating food, when you're eating snacks, make sure you have protein, fat, and fiber with whatever you're eating. That's going to keep you full and satisfied longer. That's going to keep your blood sugar nice and rolling hills instead of these huge spikes that we see. Eating more magnesium during your luteal phase can also help with that. And decreasing caffeine and alcohol during this phase is crucial. So if you drink coffee, switch to decaf. If you drink soda, cut back on the soda, cut back on the alcohol, because that is not going to help you with your PMS symptoms at all. And then some liver-friendly things you can do to support your liver. Think like dark leafy greens. Berries are super good. Beets are good. There's certain herbs out there that help the liver a lot. Ginger and turmeric are like the best that I have found. Studies have shown that ginger is just as effective or more effective than ibuprofen. So drink some ginger teas. It's amazing. And all this will help you with your PMS symptoms during your luteal phase. And during this phase, you are going to feel like you want to get things like done. You're going to want to finish up projects or assignments, because near the end of your luteal phase, that's when you're going to start to feel tired, more introverted, and more like with yourself. So because of this, with working out, at the beginning, you could still do like strength training or cardio. Maybe just like take it back a couple notches, go with like the weights, do less weights, more walking. And then near the end, you're going to want to start doing low impact workouts. This is going to help your body get ready for your period. It'll help your body feel safe, which will also help PMS symptoms. So think like Pilates, yoga, stretching, that sort of thing. And then for your menstrual phase, this is when your hormones start to balance out again. This is actually really cool because it strengthens the relationship between the right and left side of your brain, making you more sensitive and more intuitive and more in touch with your inner self. And so during your menstrual phase, it's really important to rest. I feel like a lot of us like don't actually give ourselves rest. Sometimes we think we do, but we're just like mindlessly like scrolling on our phones or like watching TV or something, and that's not what our bodies need. Our bodies actually need rest during this time. And so I've learned that even though it's hard for me, like not running and not like lifting during this phase, and like sleeping in a day or two or just like doing yoga really helps your body feel safe. It helps your cramps go away. And so it's important to do really low impact stuff during this phase. Walking is super good. But that's a little overview of like the hormones and how you're going to be feeling. I think this is important to know because I feel like as women, we tend to beat ourselves up a lot or get frustrated when we don't show up the same every week or day to day. We can easily beat ourselves up. We talk negative to ourselves a lot. But if we know this, it makes sense. Like we really won't show up the same week to week or day to day because we weren't designed to do so. And that's okay. You can give yourself some grace and love yourself through every phase. And if you know this, if you track your cycle, which Kim will talk about later, maybe you plan certain social events or more outgoing things for these two phases because you know you're going to be feeling your best. And more like staying at home activities might be in your luteal phase. But we know that all of our lives are different. There's kids, there's responsibilities, there's jobs, school. Life can't just be like perfect. So we understand like you might have activities or things going on, but knowing this still allows you to give yourself grace. So you might have a meeting or an event that you have to go to and it falls in your luteal phase. So you know then you don't have to beat yourself up. You can just know like I'm not going to probably show up as the most social butterfly in the room tonight. And that's okay. I'll show up the best I can. And then maybe the night before or after, I can give myself some more self-care. I can make sure I'm still taking care of myself in other ways because I know I'm going to be like putting out and showing like a little more than I normally would in this like certain phase. So I feel like knowing this gives yourself grace, gives yourself love, and it helps you just like feel better about yourself no matter what you're doing, where you are. And oh yeah.
And I was just gonna say, I think it sounds really simple. Like when Ashley and I first started, like, okay, we're gonna actually start doing this, like all the stuff we've been reading, we're gonna try to implement it. Okay, I started CrossFit like 7 years ago, I think. And it was CrossFit every day. Like, it didn't matter what. It was CrossFit every day, Monday through Friday, 5 a.m. This is what I do. Sundays, I felt really tired and I was pissed off, honestly, that I can't lift as heavy. And why did just 3 days ago I crushed this lift and today, like, I can barely lift the bar. And I was like always angry. I always had bad, I wouldn't say I thought of myself as like a PMS-y person because I was never really moody, but like severe cramping, heavy bleeding, long periods, all that was like the name of the game for me. Literally 3 months ago, she and I switched just the workout and some of our food. Okay, you guys, I'm not joking. Like 4-day periods, zero cramping, normal bleeding, like, and I'm like, because I'm working out different. And it was literally like, I still do CrossFit half of the month. I'm still lifting most of the other time, like through here in my luteal phase, which is long. I'm lifting at the beginning, but I am lifting lighter and I'm not doing it in a HIIT format. Like CrossFit is definitely like a HIIT format. And I'm just actually just listening. So some days, even during this phase, I might feel strong. So I'll do something strong. Before it was like, it didn't matter what my body said. It was like, this is what you do. Like, you signed up for this and this is what you do to show up as your best self. So I think it's just like really learning to listen. And then it's like, a lot of people, I was talking to a friend who's like, we call her the hormone goddess. She's actually a naturopath doctor, but she's studied hormones for like 25 years. And she's like, it's not that you can't work out during your menstrual phase. Like, there's no hormonal reason to like reduce it. Most people just don't feel well enough to do it. But I was like, by day 2 of this, I was like feeling great. So I'm like, oh, I can actually start lifting heavy again. Like, I felt fine. One thing to note, we talked about in the luteal phase, you will often find yourself more clumsy. So like, and it's because of the change in your hormones. So it's like box jumps, that's when you're gonna like miss. Or she was talking about other like athletic things, like people that are like Olympic athletes. She trains a bunch of Olympic athletes and she's like, they get still, obviously they're not like, I'm in my luteal phase, so I'm, not participating, but it was like, you're not going to perform the same. So it was just like that training mindset of having a little bit different mindset and understanding versus I just hated myself. I was just like, I'm angry because whatever. So you might find yourself more clumsy. You might find yourself whatever, but I think the key is like listening. And if you're tired, it's okay to just do some stretching. Whereas before I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not getting a workout because I'm only stretching today. Did you want to?
Yeah. So I know a lot of this is geared towards some younger folks,
right.
But for my older ladies, you really need to be sure that you're lifting weights. You got to do it. As we get older, we lose muscle mass. We need to maintain that as much as we can. We need to try to hold on to that because muscle cells, in addition to just being good at preventing the progression of osteoporosis, or if we already, if we haven't developed it yet, we want to not go down that path. So the way to do that is strength training. Start young. Don't be afraid of it. You're not going to get too bulky unless you're really, really overdoing it and doing things, dabbling in things in the men hormones and things like that. You're not. We want you to start lifting weights early and to continue doing that even as we get older, especially when we've gotten past the menopause stage. We need to hang on to that muscle mass. That's what's going to keep us strong. It's going to keep us from developing osteoporosis, but also hanging on to that muscle mass, our muscle cells. We have the little pin here. Okay. So this is really important to when we talk about insulin resistance. This is a muscle cell. There are all these little things here. These are glucose receptors. So fat cells, glucose receptors. If we have more muscle, we're going to be eating more glucose because glucose feeds these muscle cells. Even when we hang on to this muscle, even when we're not working out and we're resting, it's going to be working to eat glucose. Not as much as when we're working out and we're challenging those muscles, but it's really important that we keep these muscle cells so that we're eating more of this glucose. And in doing that, we're maintaining good glucose levels, which means our insulin levels are going to be following that as well. That's really important. And when we start talking about insulin resistance, things like that, that's which progresses to diabetes if we do not get a hold of that and keep it under control. So I'm sorry, I kind of
that's perfect.
That's
and I'm glad
so
you brought that
good.
up because I was thinking that too. Like the number one thing to help with menopause and hot flashes and all that is lifting weights. Like that's the number one thing you'll find on everything is lift weights. So.
Cut out sugar.
Oh yeah.
Because sugar triggers the hot flashes.
Yep. Yeah, I have five. I was saying we'll talk about 5 things tonight that cut out for menopause, like to help with like symptoms of menopause. But no, I love that. And I think you often hear that skin is your largest organ. And I just read a study, and the doctor was like, no, it's muscle. Like muscle is your largest organ.
Right.
Like muscle is everywhere. And the more muscle you have, yeah, it's your key to maintaining everything. And I think I like lifted when I was young, and then I went a long time not lifting. And then I think cardio gets very hyped up as for women of like how you're going to keep your physique. And that's like just actually not true. So over cardio is going to like increase all of your negative symptoms of femalehood. And lifting weights will keep them down. So
Yes, that's perfect. I love that. I just want to touch on one more thing, and then I'll be done talking. I'm going to talk about the diet a little bit, certain foods that we can eat during our different phases to kind of help us with our hormones, help us feel our best. Obviously, you can still like eat like whatever you want during these phases. These are just some things to like look for, like you're picking out produce for the week, like think of like certain produce or certain like meals you kind of want to make depending on like where you are in your cycle. And so, like I said, this is going to be like a basic overview. You also have a handout on your clipboards that lists some like food ideas for different phases. There's so much I could talk about this because, like I said, I'm a holistic nutrition, so I love food. So I can go into more, but this is going to give you like an idea of some food ideas you can eat. So with your follicular phase, our springtime phase, right, our estrogen is rising, our energy is rising, but your metabolism is going to slow down just a little bit. So you'll find that you're not as hungry during this phase, that lighter foods feel better on your stomach. And so you want to focus on more lean meat like chicken or turkey. Think light, colorful veggies. So like baked salads, stir fries, steamed veggies, that sort of thing. Your body's going to love during the follicular phase. For your ovulatory phase, for summertime, your metabolism is still a little bit slower, so lighter foods are still great. But like I said before, making sure you're helping your liver and detoxing that excess estrogen is so critical for your luteal phase, and that can start during your ovulatory phase to like set you up for a good, happy 2 weeks of the luteal phase. And so during your ovulatory phase, think cruciferous veggies. Cruciferous veggies are really good at helping detox estrogen. Think raw veggies, lots of fresh fruits, nuts, more of that fresh summertime food that you think of eating during the summertime. That's what you want to eat during your ovulatory phase. During your luteal phase, this is like the fall season, and so it really is like warmer foods. Your metabolism is going to pick back up during your luteal phase. Lots of the times you'll find yourself more hungry. And this is totally normal. It literally happens to all of us. Your body is naturally burning more calories during this phase, so it actually needs more food. That's like your body literally telling you it needs more food. But I think sometimes we beat ourselves up because sometimes, like during the month, we don't have to eat as much and we feel so healthy, we say. And other times you feel like a pig because you're like going to the pantry like 5 times and you're like, I need more food. That's totally fine. Eat an extra snack during the luteal phase. Your body needs it. It's just the key, right, is keeping your blood sugar stable. And so what you want to focus on for this, right, making sure you have proteins, fats, and fibers. But some foods that are good to eat during this to help with PMS, you're going to want to think foods rich in B vitamins, magnesium, I think I said that before, and calcium can minimize PMS symptoms. Of course, I'll say again, decrease the caffeine. That's a big one. And like I said, this is the fall phase. Think warm foods. Think like baked root veggies. Think like warm bowls, complex carbohydrates. So like sweet potatoes are a great one to eat during this phase. And yeah, eat an extra snack. But if like you're craving that chocolate, that's what like your snack is, great. Just make sure you pair it with like a little bit of protein, a little bit of fat, and you'll feel great the rest of the day, I promise. Next, for our menstrual phase, this is like winter. Again, our hormones are at their lowest, but we can support them by really focusing on like good quality protein and healthy fats. So focus on nutrient dense foods like red meat is super good. Again, warm foods, right? Like in the winter, you think about like eating soup. Eat soup, stews, broths, that sort of thing. And then just continue to make sure that you're keeping your blood sugar stable during this. So that was like very like simple, very basic, I know. But just even switching like what produce you're eating during certain phases, eating more salads and more like warm foods, it really can make a difference in how you feel. Kim was saying that we started doing this about like 3-4 months ago when I came home from serving my mission, and it's been game changer for me personally. When I was in high school, I had horrible periods. I like wouldn't have my period for months, but then when it came back like the devil, and it'd be like super heavy, super bad cramping, really to the point where like I would leave school, I couldn't go to school, or I would have to like sit out at like track practices, not go to social events. I'd hide in my room a lot. She can testify to that. It was not fun. And I remember thinking it wasn't normal that I would like miss and they would come back so extreme. So we went to the doctor at one point because I didn't know what to do. And my doctor, I mean, bless her heart, she's amazing. I love her. She recommended that I took 4 ibuprofens and 2 Midals every 6 hours for my whole menstrual
And drank a Coke.
phase, and drink a Coke with it to help it like go down. That was my like recommendation. And so I did that. I trusted her and I did it. And it worked for a little bit, mostly because I never had like caffeine before really. I was like, ooh. But then after a while it just like stopped and I still would miss and it would still come back awful. And so we started doing this about 4 months ago. For like 4 cycles I've been doing this. And the past like 2 cycles I've had super light bleeding. I've had no cramps. I haven't had to take any medicine, which I've never done before because I was used to taking every 6 hours, like ibuprofen and Midol. I haven't taken any medicine. I don't get bloated anymore. I can go to school. I can hang out with people. My energy is so much better. So I can testify that this works. So just take a few things to like try and see what happens. I feel like my biggest piece of advice is just staying consistent. Try something and then stick with it, because small progress is still progress and small wins are still wins. And these minor changes that you make will have major impact on your overall health. And so just try, see what happens. But we know that y'all will feel so much better as you just learn to trust yourself and be intuitive with yourself. So yeah.
Perfect. Hey, any questions on that, or you'd be cool to jump on? Do you want to jump into your part?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so like we said at the beginning, this is obviously more like still cycling women. Amanda's going to talk about, we've had some questions on birth control. So we're going to have a little tidbit here on birth control. And then we are going to get to older women at the end, second part too, about perimenopause, menopause, how to support hot flashes, all your bad symptoms, different things like that. So hang tight. We are going to cover briefly everything.
Okay. So like Kim said, I'm not a doctor, I'm not licensed in anything. So this is just from my own personal experience being on hormonal birth control for 6 years and what I've read. I actually stopped taking hormonal birth control in October, so I'm about 6 months in. And I'm just going to be sharing with you what I wish my doctor had told me prior to getting on the pill. So that's the form that I took. But when I'm talking about hormonal birth control, I'm talking about the pill, the patch, the ring, hormonal IUD, and the shot. So there's a variety of reasons why women go on hormonal birth control. The most common is pregnancy prevention, but doctors also prescribe birth control for heavy bleeding, bad cramps, acne, PCOS. And unfortunately, prescribing birth control for those things often just masks the issue and doesn't really address the root cause of what's going on in your body and what hormonal imbalances you're experiencing. And a lot of times when you come off birth control, they can come back with a vengeance and be even worse. And so what are the common symptoms we hear about when we think hormonal birth control? Weight gain, headaches, sore breasts, mood changes, decreased libido, acne, nausea, bloating, blood clotting, etc. And we know these symptoms, they talk about it, but it's not even half the story when you're considering the effects of what hormonal birth control can do to your brain. So we like to think that hormonal birth control can act in isolation and only affect our ability to get pregnant. But the truth is, birth control is doing so much more to you than you even realize. Your hormones deeply impact who you are, and they're an integral part of your neurology and psychology as a woman. They impact your identity, the beliefs you have about yourself, your behaviors. Essentially, you are your hormones. So this means that when you're on hormonal birth control, you're not quite you anymore. You're a different version of yourself. So what does hormonal birth control do? It's designed to interfere with the signaling process that's necessary for ovulation in your body. Birth control shuts down your natural hormone release by overriding it with artificial forms of estrogen and progesterone, like Ashley was talking about. So hormonal birth control isn't balancing your hormones, it's shutting them off. Because it's shutting off ovulation, so you can't get pregnant. So I want to talk about 3 main things on how birth control can affect your brain. There's many others, but these are the 3 that I found very interesting. The first one is stress. So too much stress is bad, but too little stress can be bad too. There's a happy middle ground. If you have too little stress in your life, you can feel depressed, bored, or apathetic. And sex attraction and the anticipation of something exhilarating is actually a powerful elicitor of stress, even though we enjoy that. That is a stress response in our body. So we have something called our HPA axis, which is our hypothalamic, pituitary, and adrenal axis. And that's a key factor of most stress responses in our brain. Our stress hormone is cortisol, and it surges when we experience something stressful. And research has found that pill-taking women have blunted cortisol response to stress, no cortisol response to stress, and sometimes levels of cortisol are actually decreased. And you might think, oh, well, that's great. Not quite. Essentially, pill-taking women lack the HPA axis response to stress. And HPA axis dysfunction can affect your moods and your immune system. Studies have also shown that women on the pill have entirely different daily cortisol rhythms than women that are not on hormonal birth control. So the cortisol peak in the morning is lower in women on birth control, and the cortisol curve is flatter. And you think, oh, cool, less stress. But studies have shown that the amount of cortisol in women on hormonal birth control is actually overall higher than women who are naturally cycling. And so when you have too much cortisol, it can cause structural and functional changes to areas like your hippocampus in your brain, which is responsible for learning and memory. So the second thing I want to talk about is how hormonal birth control can affect your mood. Women on hormonal birth control can have trouble regulating fear, anxiety, and anger. Our moods are affected by our hormones, and our mood shifts throughout the month during the natural cycle, like Ashley talked about. So hormonal birth control women are 50% more likely to be diagnosed with depression 6 months after getting on hormonal birth control, and 40% more likely to be prescribed an antidepressant. And women who are on hormonal birth control have reduced reactivity to emotional stimuli in places like your amygdala in your brain, which is responsible for processing emotion, fear, aggression, sexual behavior, and reward learning. The last point I want to talk about is your love and sex life while you're on hormonal birth control. It can change the kind of men you're attracted to. So this is the craziest part. When you're in your estrogen dominant phase, your follicular phase, you're going to feel very confident, sexual, beautiful, like you're ready to get it on, like you're looking for that man, and you're looking for a particular man when you're having that estrogen dominant in the curve. So you're going to be looking for men that are socially dominant, confident, symmetrical, deep voice, present more masculine. But the pill doesn't allow you to experience the estrogen spike you get right before you ovulate. your brain is tricked into thinking it's in the luteal phase at all times. And so you're in that progesterone dominant phase. And you're more likely to be attracted to less dominant men when you're on the birth control pill. So women not on hormonal birth control experience more sexual arousal, are more sexually adventurous, and will initiate sex more often. But women on hormonal birth control prioritize the men's ability to provide or make money more than that sexual experience, because when we're in our luteal phase, we've ovulated, we're preparing for a baby, and we're like, wait a second, are you going to be a good baby daddy? Like, can you provide? Can you make money? Because we're nesting. We're like ready for this baby to come. We're realizing, oh, do I have a partner that's actually going to be there with me for this? So being in that artificial luteal phase causes us to prioritize quality that make us feel secure when we're preparing for pregnancy. So what are the benefits of not being on hormonal birth control and naturally cycling? Ovulation is primarily how women make our sex hormones. So our estrogen helps with optimal bone health, preventing Alzheimer's, stabilizes blood pressure, promotes healthy cardiovascular tissue and healthy levels of cholesterol, and helps regulate our mood. And progesterone stabilizes mood, promotes deep sleep, nourishes hair and skin, is anti-inflammatory, and stimulates the thyroid to boost metabolism and our energy levels. So let's talk about the effectiveness of different forms of birth control. The pill's 93 to 99% effective, depending on how well you take it. The vaginal ring's 93% effective. The hormonal IUD is 94% effective at preventing pregnancy. Condoms are 87% effective. And I personally use an app called Natural Cycles, which allows you to track your cycle naturally based on your daily basal temperature that you take in the morning when you wake up. It tells you which phase that you're in, gives you an ovulation window. Using that app, it's proven to be 93 to 98% effective at preventing pregnancy. So it's within that window of all of the other hormonal birth control that I just talked about, but allows you to experience your body the way it was designed to operate without completely altering your brain chemistry. And the last note, there's two more notes. One is, if you are going to cycle naturally, the one thing is it takes discipline, because there are going to be days where your hubby is going to be coming at you and you're going to be like, whoa, hold up, it's a red day. Like, stoplight, stop. We need a condom or some other form of non-hormonal birth control if we're not looking to conceive at this time, but it does take discipline. So just be aware of that. And the last note that I want to put in here is advocate for yourself with your doctor. I was on birth control for 6 years, and the first 2 years I was on the pill, at each appointment, I went to my doctor and I said, I don't want to have sex with my husband anymore. Like, this doesn't feel normal to me. My libido is completely gone. I don't like what's going on. What is going on with me? And at each appointment, I was completely dismissed and told, your stress is too high. For 6 years, I had like severe decreased libido. The first 6 years of my marriage, actually. Until I stopped birth control without even talking to my doctor, because I was so done. And then I went to my doctor for my next appointment, and I said, oh yeah, by the way, I'm not on the pill anymore. And they're like, oh, well, why? And I explained my reasons. And I'm so mad about this still. They actually had questions for me about the symptoms I was experiencing while on the pill. And they finally asked me about it 6 years later, when I took control and said I didn't want to do this anymore. So you know your body. Listen to your body and advocate for yourself. Even when you feel like you're not being listened to, push the issue, because you matter. You know your body. Do what's right for you. So at the end, I'm not telling you not to be on hormonal birth control. I was on it for 6 years. I'm just telling you, this is what I wish I knew before I was on it for 6 years of my marriage.
Well, fortunate enough for you, you were able to take that, take control or whatever, but sometimes that's too late. And couples don't understand, what's going on with each other, and thus relationships are broken and
Absolutely. And I will say that my husband, like, it was getting to the point where my husband, like, not like divorce isn't a word in our vocabulary, you know, but it was getting to the point where he was like, this is seriously affecting our marriage.
and it's not fun.
And it's not fun at all, because I felt like TMI, like, there were times where we would be trying to be intimate and I would just start crying because I didn't know what was wrong with me.
You think you're broken.
So avoid that if you can, because it's not worth it, you guys. It's really not. But I'm done. Sorry. Sorry. That's my spiel.
I love it. Okay. Do you want to jump in or do you want me to go? Do you want to talk? Do you want to go last?
Yeah, I'll go last. Yeah.
Okay. So I was trying to think of a few topics, because right, there's so many. So I was thinking, okay, what is perimenopause? What is menopause? So perimenopause comes right before menopause, but it can be like starting at like age 37 is average. Average age of menopause is 51. To be technically in menopause, you have to have 12 consecutive months of no period. I hit 6. I thought I was there, and then like my period came back. So I was like, oh, well, just kidding. I guess I'm in perimenopause. So, and I'm 48. So it has to be 12 months consecutive of no period for menopause. Average age is 51. The interesting thing about menopause is that's when your hormone production is leaving your ovaries and it's shifting to your adrenal glands. So that's like the main difference in your hormone production, like is where it's coming from. As far as perimenopause, what you might see is your PMS symptoms might change. So maybe you only had a couple of days of symptoms before, now you're going to have 2 weeks. Or maybe you had a very regular period before, and now it's like going to be short, then it's going to be long, and then it's going to be heavy, and then you're going to go 20 days between, and then you're going to go 30 days between. Like, it's just all irregular, like it just all changes. And that's the phase that I am currently living in, and it's kind of weird. But by doing all of this stuff, at least the period's not bad. So I'm like, okay, it can come in 20 days, even though it's just here, because at least I'm not cramping and I'm not like bleeding out of control. So, but what's interesting, and Brady and I didn't quite get the full script thing up, but there's lots of supplements you can take if you're a perimenopausal woman. So you want your B complex vitamins, you want vitamin C, you want L-theanine, and you want magnesium. Like, those are like going to be your go-to supplements during that phase that are going to like greatly reduce symptoms. They're going to keep your period happier. They're going to keep you happier during that time. You can eat antioxidants. You want to get quality sleep through all of this, whether you're a cycling woman, whether you're a perimenopausal woman, or a menopausal woman. Like, I think I put the basics on your handout. It's the same for every phase. You have to prioritize your sleep. I've read so many studies that it's like, it doesn't matter what you eat, how much you exercise, how much you get outside in the sunlight, blah, blah, blah. If you don't sleep well and manage your stress, you will not have gains anywhere else. So you're not going to see gains in the gym. You're not going to have relationship. Like, everything's just tanked by stress and sleep. So prioritizing that. So that looks different to everybody, but basically you hear a lot of people that are like, I'm a night owl. Like, I just like to stay up at night. Yeah, our bodies are designed, like, cortisol is going to shoot back up around 11 p.m. That's normal. You're supposed to be asleep before that so that you're not awake when the cortisol spikes back up. You're supposed to be sleeping when that happens. So yeah, if you're awake, you're going to experience that. It's going to be hard to sleep. So the key is you got to go to bed before that. Building your muscle mass. We talked about that a little bit. I had that on there, right? You've got to weight train. So whatever that looks like to you, but you have to lift weights. My mom, who is a very tiny little lady, and she's so cute, but she was so devastated last year. She went to the doctor and she calls me crying, and she's like, they said that I have osteoporosis. And I've noticed, like, she has definitely been shrinking. Like, she was like 5'6", 5'7" growing up. She's like my height now, so I'm 5'3". How much does grandma weigh? Maybe 109 pounds.
Maybe.
She's tiny, but and she's like trying to do some muscle stuff now, but like, she's just waited too long. Like, she's always been active, so she assumed she was fine. She's never had a weight problem in her life. She's always been thin. She's always been relatively healthy. Granted, she has like a kidney transplant, other like issues. So that has played some factors, but she's always been active. But active does not equal resistance training. And so I think that's the key that you've got to remember is like being active by working in your yard, and she climbs the stairs 20 times a day because she's cleaning her big house all the time. Like all these things, chasing kids, grandkids, she's not lifting weights. So the only way to help osteoporosis, right? The number one preventative for osteoporosis is weightlifting. So you used to talk about with food, right? I mean, how many times have you heard like, that's why you have to drink milk because it makes your bones strong, which is actually a big lie. Milk doesn't make your bones strong at all. No, it's lifting weights. So that's like biggest thing I can push today. Sleep, manage your stress, lift weights. Like that's your thing. We're going to talk a little bit about daily routine, but hormone replacement therapy, and Amy's going to jump in probably to a little bit of this, but I just wanted to mention one thing that I find super interesting. Women often talk about like they need hormone replacement therapy, which is effective. It's a good thing. But if you're unhealthy prior to, like if you have a hormone imbalance, which we're going to talk about the symptoms and we're going to draw a tree, but we didn't really get to that. We can show it up at the end. But so symptoms of hormonal imbalance, right? Should we spout off a few? Want to list up a few? Most people then they go to their doctor and the doctor's gonna be like, oh, well, you're low in testosterone or you're low in estrogen. Like, whoop, here's your pellets, here's your shot, here's medicine, like whatever. Okay, but why do I have an imbalance to start with? So if you have issues internally, like, so we can go through what those could be coming from. If you don't fix those and you just get hormone replacement therapy, your body still doesn't know what to do with the new hormones. So like if your liver's not detoxifying your estrogen and that's why you have this problem, then you've got to figure out how to get your liver working, right? So a lot of women, I think it's like 50, I wrote down the percentage somewhere, have like fatty liver disease. That's not from women that drink alcohol. It's literally like all these hormonal problems. So you've got to fix the fatty liver disease before you start putting in hormone. You've got to fix your leaky gut if you have a leaky gut issue. So if you have a leaky gut issue, guess what your hormones are doing? Like they're either stagnant, they're stuck, like your hormones have to be moving. We've talked about that with your liver, right? They have to be moving through your body. They're getting stuck somewhere because you have digestive issues or membrane issues in your stomach. They're stuck. They're not going to be doing their job. Does that kind of make sense? So like you've got to address those root causes before you get hormone replacement therapy. Hormone replacement therapy is great. If you get that. I thought I had it written down. Yeah, so heal your gut, number one. Yeah, so your gut's kind of like the trunk of your tree. This is what we're talking about. Doctors are going to work on this part. Okay, so they're going to, these are all your symptoms up here. You're going to have poor moods, back cramping, total low energy, right? People that need a lot of that. It's like, I have no energy. So the doctor says I need hormone. My mood is crap. I have digestive issues. Like all these things are your symptoms. The doctor's going to give you something to fix that and never address anything down here. So it's going to work for a little while. You can go get on Accutane and fix your acne for a little while. Guess what happens when you come off Accutane? It's going to last for a little while. And then if this isn't fixed, it's all going to come back. Same with hormone replacement therapy, anything, right? It's going to all come back. So we thought, oh, the gut's a perfect analogy for the trunk because everything comes into that. If your gut is goofy, you're in bad shape. And then how do you fix your gut? It's going to be all your lifestyle factors. So this is when we talk about your sleep, your weightlifting, your diet, blood sugar balance, all that. You got to fix the root. So if you're in our weight loss program, this is what we really focus on, right? Like balancing your blood sugar, eating whole foods, getting rid of packaged foods, managing your stress. Then your gut's going to heal. These are going to go away. That's why we get people that sign up with the weight loss program to lose weight and pretty soon they're like, I don't have joint pain or I have increased energy or whatever. This is all related, like the tree's all related. The leaves are going to fall off, but the roots down here like are a big issue. So managing your stress and sleep. Oh, this is another big one. Alcohol, caffeine, and sugar, all kind of in the same boat. But if you're like a menopausal woman or someone that's having hormone imbalances, you've got to cut out the alcohol if possible completely, at least greatly reduce it. But sugar and caffeine are going to do the same thing. So if you don't get rid of those, then because, hold on, my thing won't. What does it do with the estrogen? Right? I think they actually, this is why I had it on my other thing that was bigger, but it actually changes your estrogen, the alcohol and the caffeine. So it will actually trigger your hot flashes. You talked about the sugar, Joyce. Alcohol will do the same thing. Oh, it raises the estrogen circulating for 6 hours post drink. So if you drink caffeine or you consume a lot of sugar or you drink alcohol, your estrogen will stay circulating in your blood 4 to 6 hours after that. So think about people that are hitting caffeinated drinks like throughout the day. Your estrogen's just staying. Okay, then you become estrogen dominant. That's why your testosterone is tanked, whatever. So does that kind of make sense? So the key is you've got to fix all of these things to at least get your system working. Then you can see, do I actually need hormone replacement therapy? Possibly, very much. But you might find that it actually balances out without it. There are some doctors that are going to address this, but they're not going to be very many. So that's why you've got to learn for yourself and then advocate and go and say, what about this? Or what's going to happen with this? So that you can like make more informed choices for yourself.
If your estrogen levels are all over the place and stuff, does that increase our chance of breast cancer and those kinds of things? Yeah, it does too.
Yeah. The other thing too that I was going to say just real quickly, and then I'm going to let Amy jump into it, but think about all your toxins too. Okay, so we've talked about food. We've talked a lot about exercise and movement and sleep. But if you're full of toxins, meaning the food you eat, but also the lotion you're slathering all over your body, the plugins in your house, the candles. Like, since I've detoxed all that stuff from my house, I literally go into places and I'm like, I need a mask. Like, it's so horrible. It's so strong. But there's actually there's actually studies now increase in all these things. Like, it's linked. Uterine fibrosis, all these things because of phthalates. So check your labels, get the apps that help you make sure the stuff you're using is clean, because toxin load and estrogen is a big deal. Basically, those things mimic estrogen. So then your body thinks you have a lot of estrogen, and then it quits producing estrogen. So a lot of issues with our toxicity too. So there's a quick snippet of that. All right, Amy. You're right.
All right. So I could probably do a whole entire class, and I think this is a good idea, of just going over labs and what kind of labs we should be having drawn from year to year. I think it's really important that we kind of stay on top of that to see how our body is functioning. I could do a whole entire, and that's a good idea. We should do that. Because I think it's important for you to know what's going on with your body. Why do we draw these labs? What are we looking at when we draw labs? And I think that that's a big thing in our healthcare system where nobody really takes the time to explain that to patients. And so you're kind of going in and you're like, oh, okay, well, this is out of whack. And this is, this level's high, this level's low. So I could spend an eternity on this, but I'm just going to kind of highlight some of the labs that we look at as far as the sex hormones are concerned, and then some of the other hormones that we look at. So basically, when we look at sex hormones, the reason why we want to evaluate them for one of two reasons. When we're younger, we want to see if that's how those sex hormones are contributing to our fertility. Is this making our fertility worse? Is our fertility okay? So that's one reason why we look at it. But as we get older, we want to see, are these hormones being produced too much or not enough? So that way we can kind of be guided into where we are in the menopause phase. Are we premenopausal or are we menopausal? So that's why we look at sex hormones. So the first one that we're going to look at, of course, everybody's really familiar with estrogen. So I'm actually going to write it out. So when we're younger, we are dominated by predominantly estrogen 2. So you can break down estrogen to estrogen 2 and estrogen 1. So when we're younger, estrogen 2 is the main estrogen that's being produced. So we're going to kind of break down the estrogen to look and see how that's functioning. But as we get older and transition into menopause, we're going to have predominantly estrogen 1 in effect. So when we're looking at those, we're kind of able to gauge where we are in our phase of life. Are we premenopausal or nowhere near menopause, basically, and then entering into the premenopausal and menopausal time, we'll see this number elevated. What we want our estrogen to be overall. So we're going to have a little bit of variation. If you could open up a book and see what lab values are for one clinic or one lab So they're going to vary just a little bit from place to place, protocol to protocol. Different physicians will follow different guidelines, but they're usually only going to vary by small numbers. So it should be your estrogen overall should be somewhere between 60 to 200. So that's what we want it to be. If we're not seeing good levels of estrogen, then that's out of whack, and we need to address that further. Again, I could go all day on this and go into depth, but I got a lot of labs to cover here. So estrogen is the first one. So the next one is going to be, actually we're going to look at these two together. So it's going to be follicular stimulating hormone and luteal hormone. So these two we look at, follicle stimulating hormone. I'm a terrible speaker, by the way. So follicle stimulating hormone and luteal hormone. Those two together work with our brain to communicate with our ovaries. Okay, so these things are going to send a message from our brain to tell our ovaries what to do. Okay, so this is really the main one that we're going to look at. We want these to be about the same, so like a 1-to-1 ratio. So if we see this one's high, then we're pretty much going to guess that this one should be high too. But if they're not, then those are out of whack. But again, these are our communicators between our brain and our ovaries. They're going to tell our ovaries when to produce eggs, when to release eggs. And so when these are not functioning properly, they're out of whack, our ovulation system is going to be out of whack as well. So the more eggs and follicles that we have, the lower that this number should be. But when this number is higher, when the follicle stimulating hormone is higher, then we have less follicles, which means that we're not probably going to be ovulating anymore. So the higher this number is, the more likely that we are premenopause or menopause. So this is important. If you have somebody that's 35 and over, most likely this is saying, hey, we're heading into menopause or we're already there. If we're somebody younger than 35, yes, it could be that we have premenopause is occurring a little bit earlier, but also it could mean that we have something else going on. Could be Turner syndrome, which is a genetic condition. That's a whole nother rabbit hole. Could be PCOS is affecting that. Things like that can throw this out of whack when we're younger. Insulin resistance can cause a lot of issues as well. And we'll talk about insulin resistance a little bit more in a minute.
Trying to favorite child. Trying to favorite child. Yeah.
I was thinking there was an eraser somewhere, but there isn't. Okay. Progesterone. So this is the pregnancy hormone. So we're going to really look at this when we're younger to see if we have enough progesterone to support a pregnancy. If this is low, then most likely we're not going to be able to support a pregnancy, and we'll be experiencing miscarriages when this is out of whack. And of course, as we get older, we want to, this does, it does help us feel good too. If this is out of whack, we may not be feeling quite like ourselves either. We want this to be, let's see, 3 to 10. We have that level drawn. And then, let's see. This one, do you want me to get that? This one I definitely have to write out because this one is a tough one for me to pronounce. I like to just say DHEA. This is, so I'm going to take my time saying it, but I'm also going to write it out. It's dehydroepiandrosterone. I didn't spell that right.
We would not know.
Androsterone. I always want to say androsterone, but it's androsterone. So this is like the anti-aging hormone. So as we get older, this is going to get lower. We would like to see it somewhere between 150 to 380. So as we get older, this will kind of be a marker to see, if our hormones are out of balance as well. If we're heading towards, the menopause, we're going to see this number really decline. And last but not least of our sex hormones, did y'all check it out? Okay. Again, I would really like to do a class on just labs and spend a lot more time and I'm really digging in deeper. And this one we often think of as a male hormone, testosterone. Okay. Think of it as a male hormone, but this is also, we have testosterone as well. So this is one of the hormones that help us with our sex drive. They help us to feel good as well. And if we do not have this, if this is not, we don't have, normal levels of this, then we will see a decrease in our sex drive and it will affect us. So we will like for this, so we kind of break it down into two different labs. We've got free T, which is supposed to be 2.5 to 6, and then total T. It's important to look at both of these so that we can kind of further analyze if one of these is out of whack and the other one is not. It can kind of help explain why things are out of whack and like that. So free T, 2.5 to 6, and then 20 to 45 for total T. So those are the sex hormones that we want to look at, trying to help us with determining, where we are in our life cycles. But I would be doing a disservice if I did not address some other hormones like thyroid hormone. Very, very, very important. That's part of our endocrine system, so it's not technically considered a sex hormone, but the thyroid hormone is very, very crucial in determining. It's kind of like the boss. It's really directing a lot of our other hormones and telling our other hormones what to do. It's helping with directing our metabolic functioning. And so it's really important that this is in check because like with any hormone, if you get one that's out of whack, it starts affecting all of our other hormones. It starts having an effect on everything, not just other hormones, but on our body systems as well. So it's really important when we get one that's out of whack, taking a look at the bigger picture to see, what's going on, bigger picture. Why is this out of whack? It could be that we got other hormones. So we really need to not just look at the sex hormones, but it's really crucial to look at this thyroid hormone because it plays a really big part in our entire life system. So thyroid, we're going to also break this one down into some other labs as well. So main thyroid, so that's going to be TSH, and we're going to have T3 and T4. So it's kind of an intricate little system. When we get one of these that are off, it can indicate what's going on and what's causing the total thyroid hormone to be out of whack as well. So what we want is to see, we want our overall thyroid, free T4 is going to be 1 to 1.5, T3, 3 to 4, and then we want this overall thyroid, we want it to be, all right, so we want to really pay close attention to our thyroid. And also we want to make sure that, is it okay. We also want to look at insulin. Insulin is a hormone in our body that regulates our blood sugar. So it's really important that we have our insulin under control. So insulin should be less than 6 or 7. Some folks prefer to use 7. I think it's important for it to be under 6. We start getting into a crazy range. We start worrying when our insulin gets between 12 and 18. We're starting to see the progression of insulin resistance. So this is really a lab that we want to take a closer look at. We want to see what's going on with our blood sugar. Why is our blood sugar not controlled? We want to make sure that we're taking a look at our insulin. When it's over 18, that's when problems really, we are really looking at having significant insulin resistance, and we're probably progressing towards type 2 diabetes. Just like any other hormone, insulin affects not just your blood sugar, so it can affect your blood pressure. It can cause heart disease. It can cause dementia down the road. So this is really something that we want to get under control, because if we don't really realize oftentimes when insulin is out of control, because we don't get these overt signs and symptoms like you would If you're experiencing maybe like a thyroid, if your thyroid's out of control and it's high, you'll have a high heart rate. Some people will get the bulging eyes and that kind of thing. So the insulin though is sneaky and it kind of creeps in on you. There's really no overt signs and symptoms. Probably the most overt thing that you may notice with insulin resistance would be skin tags under your arms or your neck, thickening of the skin of the neck and discoloration of the neck when you're kind of starting to get kind of a darker pigmentation. But I really want to highlight this one because insulin resistance is a big problem in our American society now because we are eating diets that are high in carbohydrates typically. So if you think about it, if you looked out this window right now, you could probably see at least 4 or 5 fast food restaurants. We're eating highly processed foods that are high in carbs, lots of chemicals like we talked about. If you just look at a label of food, and you look at the ingredients labels, and you look at what's in your food, it's incredible. So when this is out of control, it can set off a lot of issues. And then, we have a big problem in this country with diabetes. I kind of get on my soapbox about this one because it all comes down to lifestyle habits. And when we change that, when we're eating healthy, we're eating whole foods that are more natural, when we're cutting back on our carbohydrate intake and we're not overloading ourselves with lots of carbohydrates, we get that under control, then we will not be heading towards the path of insulin resistance if we are exercising and getting good physical activity. Yes, doing those weightlifting, no matter what age we are, start young. If you've got daughters, start them young. As you get older, keep it up because this is going to help control our insulin resistance. When this is out of whack, when any hormone is out of whack, it's going to affect us less, it just affects us, from the top down. So we've got to be mindful of these hormones. And there's so many other hormones, not just these, but I really like to highlight these because these are the ones as women that typically tend to really kind of get out of control. And so we want to focus on those labs, like you said, seeing what we can do to get to the root of the problem. I could spend a whole nother night on that. And going further into more labs like our lipid panels, CBCs, CMP, so that's complete metabolic panel where we're looking at our renal functions, that's our kidneys, our liver function, we're looking at our electrolyte levels. So many things that we need to kind of be mindful of, not just our sex hormones, but looking at the big picture as well, and seeing how all of those things, when you've got some values that are elevated or extremely low, it will affect you overall. It just kind of, we're a very intricate system, all tied in one way or the other. So when you get one thing that's out of control, one thing that's not functioning like it should, it kind of creates this domino effect. But I can't express enough how important it is to really get a good handle on your diet, eating a good nutritious diet, and then getting good physical activity. Changing that is going to change the root cause of a lot of our issues. So it's really important. Okay. Yeah. So again, I think I should teach a class going a little more in depth into some labs, so that we kind of get a better understanding of those, because I truly feel like that's something that a lot of providers don't do. They don't, and we're constrained a lot by time. We got to get to the next patient really quick. But I was a nurse first, and that was my job as a nurse, to sit at a bedside and explain labs to people and explain their disease processes and what they could do to make it better. And I like to continue doing that as a nurse practitioner, because I feel like that's important. I feel like that's a big missing link in our healthcare system. Not really taking the time to help somebody adequately understand what's going on, what we can do to fix that. Getting to the root of the problem and not just throwing a medication at it. Not just, saying, well, have the surgery, take this pill. There's digging down a little deeper and finding the root cause of things. But I can promise you, almost always, it comes down to nutrition and lifestyle. All right, any questions for me? Because I know I just kind of, yeah.
Okay. Hot flashes, cold flashes. I've been having them since 24. What is this? I already know that's not the proper age for menopause.
Right. So, and you told me that you had PCOS. Yeah. So a lot of times with PCOS, did they explain to you how PCOS creates it? You have a higher level of androgen, which is a male hormone. And so again, that's a disruptor. So it's disrupting your normal hormone systems. So it's going to kind of affect how the other hormones come into play. So it will affect the natural functioning of like your estrogen. It will affect your testosterone, your progesterone, all of those. And so it will cause an imbalance with those, and that's how you will experience the hot flashes, because those from time to time will fluctuate and cause a disruption with the other hormones.
Is there a reason why it fluctuates?
What, for the androgen?
Yeah.
Well, just like your cycle. It will cause a fluctuation in your hormones throughout your cycle.
I thought it was just playing really bad tricks on a daily basis,
Yeah.
depending on what its need was.
Yeah. So do they have you on like a low carb diet to address any insulin resistance or anything? They checked your insulin levels.
So because of the hot flashes, I asked them to check for a hormonal imbalance. They did a full panel with my gynecologist, and they just came back, said I had PCOS, and I ended up having to find a book to even figure out what that was, because they kind of gave me like the very brief description that you're never going to remember, because at that point you're still trying to figure out what the acronym actually means.
Right.
And from there, no, I didn't know that I was supposed to cut certain things out of my daily diet. I know that I definitely added a bit more in, because at that point my stress levels went up.
Yeah.
And apparently I am a stress eater. So,
Yeah. So that's definitely going to feed into. So what usually happens with people that have PCOS, they have insulin resistance. I could talk to you on the side too and go a little further in depth and detail, but the first line of treatment for that usually is dietary change and eating a low carbohydrate diet to get the insulin and glucose levels under control.
Like
So-
numerous people get rid of PCOS simply from, right? Like that's what I.
Yeah. So I have known numerous people that have had infertility issues. Some of them were overweight, some were not. But you basically treat somebody that has PCOS as if they are a diabetic. That's kind of how you treat it. You attack the diet, get it as low carb as you can. Because when we lower those glucose levels, your insulin levels are going to follow that as well. So what happens is when your glucose levels go up, your pancreas that produces the insulin detects the glucose levels going up. And so it's going to send out insulin into the blood to control that glucose. But when our glucose levels are consistently high, and so our insulin levels are trying to control that. And if they can't, then your insulin levels are going to be high, and your glucose levels are going to be high. And so that's basically insulin resistance, where your body just becomes immune to insulin. It becomes resistant to its effects. So now it's not controlling that glucose like it's supposed to. It's not keeping it under control. Now you've got high glucose, you've got high insulin. Insulin starts affecting your other body tissues, your body systems. And so when that starts getting way too out of control, you could progress down to diabetes. So the thing is, getting that under control will help to control those PCOS symptoms and get it under control as well. So like I said, one hormone's, out of control, it's not doing what it's supposed to be doing, it starts wreaking havoc on the rest of your body. So getting that under control, and the way to do that is eating a diet that's low in carbohydrates, higher in the proteins and fats, and low in carbs. Also, increasing your physical activity is really important. Resistance exercise, I talked about that muscle cell with all of its receptors. We want to increase our muscle mass. Doesn't mean that we have to be bulky. We don't have to be like the Hulk. We just, get good lean muscle mass going, and that's going to help control our glucose levels when we're working our muscles. With all those glucose receptors eating up those glucose molecules, it helps to keep our glucose levels down. Intermittent fasting, I don't know if you're familiar with that as well. Intermittent fasting, so basically in a nutshell, there's a couple of different ways that you can do intermittent fasting. But the idea is, the longer that you can put yourself into a fasting state, the more that you're allowing your body to get those glucose levels lower, to get your insulin levels will fall, and kind of put you in a resting state where those levels come down lower and you're not exposed to higher levels of glucose and insulin. Insulin's really the bad guy in the picture. Everybody thinks glucose, but again, it's a hormone. Insulin's a hormone, and it starts affecting a lot of your body tissues and a lot of your body functions when it's out of control. So metabolic syndrome is something that you see frequently in people that have PCOS. You get the high blood pressure. Do you have high blood pressure?
No, but I have high cholesterol.
Okay, there you go. It's part of metabolic syndrome. Yeah. So the people that have PCOS will experience some of those things as well. So again, the key is to controlling your insulin levels and doing that through diet and increased exercise and intermittent fasting.
He's kind of the key for everything.
It really is.
Everything you study on any hormone, anything, it's blood sugar regulation, right? That's our weight loss program is blood sugar regulation, is the foundation of it. You do that, your hormones stay in control. Like, it's just kind of like
And I know when you're young, you're not thinking about it. I'm speaking to my younger folks in here. When you're younger, you're really not thinking about that, because you've got great metabolism for the most part. Your body is able to really handle carbohydrates better. But as you get older, it really does become a problem. So, but even when we are young, it does, of course it happens too when we're younger. But I know when I was young, I didn't really worry about that kind of stuff. I ate whatever I wanted to. I did exercise a good bit. I think that may have been my saving grace. But my diet was terrible when I was in my 20s and I was in college. I didn't care, And as I got older, I started caring a little bit more. But now, that I've gone through practitioner school, that I've taken care of patients, that I've worked in cardiology. I've seen what happens when you neglect your health, when you're not eating right, and you're not exercising, you're sedentary. I've seen what happens when you show up in the hospital and you're in heart failure and your blood pressure is out of control. I'm kind of going off on a tangent, not just this applies for everybody, not just women, but, I think that we get so busy in our life taking care of children. We get caught up in our careers and all of those things, oftentimes it's all of those, lots of multifactorial things that happen that take your eye off, your own health. And so being mindful of what you're putting in your body, what you're eating, taking care of yourself by exercising, that's what it all really does come down to, that's where the root of it is. So if we get a good handle on our nutrition and our exercising, it will help control. Not to say that our hormones aren't going to get out of control, from other ways. There are other disease processes that affect our hormones. You can get nodules on your thyroid, and that can set the ball rolling and getting your thyroid levels out of control. And again, it starts creating a domino effect. So there's other things that it can be, but if we're focusing on taking good care of ourselves, it's going to be one big giant piece of the puzzle as far as where our health kind of goes off track. And I can talk to more if you want. I feel bad that nobody's talked to you about it. That's the problem.
I know, that's always so sad. I thought real quick I would just jump in real fast, and then if people want to stay around, ask questions to Amy or whatever we can, but those of you that need to get going can get going, and I can turn this thing off. One thing to think about though with these hormones, and I didn't dive into it, but there are foods to eat and things to do to support each of these. So if you're like, okay, what are the symptoms of poor progesterone? Look it up, and then look up what can I do to support it. Be careful of what you're searching for. I don't know if you're aware who owns Google, but put in holistic ways to support these things, or you're going to get Healthline, and it's going to not lead you in the right direction. So just kind of be mindful about how you're searching for things. But all of these things, and especially like Instagram is actually a great tool because there's a ton of holistic practitioners that share their stuff on there. You can find, there's like 12 really easy foods you can eat to increase your progesterone. There are like all these things. We talked about skin, simple things. Sunflower oil, known to aggravate acne. Read your labels. Zinc clears up your skin. So like there's just tons of little tidbits of information that we could like have classes on this. Like most ones are like, oh, we could share this and we could share this. But basically think about like think about these. This is what I want you to go away with, because I have so many friends that suffer from hormonal issues, PCOS, can't get pregnant. Literally friends that have been told their whole life that they can't have children. They literally change their diet and start working out and they get pregnant. And I'm like, well, fertility clinics would be out of business if this information was just like shared. I've had people come to me, they're like, yeah, I know your husband's a chiropractor and they think they can like solve fertility. And I'm like, actually they can. Like he's had numerous patients. So it's like a lot of this can be solved. The medical world, guys, there's a reason the medical world doesn't want to tell us all these things. Like medical world's about money. So there's no money in changing your diet and getting out in the sun in the morning and going for a walk. Like, but it will heal you. So just keep those things in mind and don't just rely on the doctor thinking. I think we have this like notion that like the doctor, whatever they say, like I'm going to have to do, like that's what they said. Like I was just thinking myself, I have kidney disease. I've been seeing a nephrologist for, 12 years, high blood pressure because I had kidney disease. My entire life I've been on medication. I'm not an overweight person. I work out all the time. I eat nutrient-dense whole food. And they're like, well, there's just nothing you can do. It's because you have kidney disease. So you'll always have high blood pressure. And I'm like, finally, literally last year, I'm like, okay, there's got to be something else I can do. So I added in daily sauna and I added in meditation with different breathing. And I've been off my medication for 6 months. I haven't told my doctor yet, but I take my blood pressure every day and it's normal. So there are things we can do, but you've got to be proactive because no one's going to be proactive for you. So if you don't like what's happening or you want things to change, just like find a holistic practitioner, naturopath, holistic practitioner, chiropractor, whomever, look up your own stuff, get books. I put a list of books on your, one of the handouts. There's also a QR code there. If you just want to get it from Amazon, that links right to Amazon where I have them all linked in my store. So you can just purchase ones that you want off there. They're kind of all ages, like if you're menopause, if you just come off the pill, or if you're young. So anyways, thank you guys for coming. You're welcome to stay and mingle. Ashley made treats. When you're craving the chocolate, add a little something to your chocolate, makes it a little bit healthier. So these are protein balls. So they have collagen, they have a nut butter. So you get your protein, your fat, and you get your little chocolate too.
Or magnesium. If anyone's allergic to nuts, please don't eat these.
Anyways, I also put a seed cycling thing on your paper. That was a super fascinating thing to me. Literally adding seeds in changes up your cycle, which is strange, super easy thing to do. Anyways, if you have interest, drop me a message, social media, call the office if you want to have other classes on specific topics. This was like hard to do an overview and get into depth and not get into depth, and it just was kind of complicated. Real quick, we do have these for everybody. It's raspberry leaf tea, super awesome if you're on your period. Q dark chocolate, which is like the cleanest dark chocolate you can buy. So there's one of those for each of you. We were gonna throw these out as prizes tonight, but we didn't because I don't think there's enough for everybody. Costco quit selling these, so when I went back to buy more to bring tonight, well, they didn't have them anymore, but it's just individual servings of bone broth. So anyway, Ashley doesn't like to drink bone broth plain, so she makes it into bone broth hot chocolate, adds chocolate protein powder. It's pretty awesome. You can, I've been making my rice with it when I need my little bit of rice, make it with bone broth, or you can just drink it. If you are interested and you want one, first come, first serve. There you go. Anyways, thank you so much for coming. Any questions, any comments, just you can still chat with us. I'm turning this off. I don't even know if anybody's on here. I don't even know how to do this.